Do you monetize the show right now, and or do you plan on monetizing the show?
Right now, I'm currently in the process of developing a strategy to monetize. Really, what my goal and objective was really with the show was that to first see, is there interest? Are people interested in learning about this non-popular Black history aspect? So really, like anything, I've kind of been in the pilot phase, just really trying to understand the podcast industry in general, trying to see how Black history fits into this creative space, continue to do a lot of market research to see, okay, where can we go from here? How can we develop the show? But then too, working on that third aspect, now that we've built, I think, a great foundation, we have a listening community. I've gotten some market research and some feedback back from customers. Now it's like, okay, how do we further grow it? And so monetizing is the next, phase. I've done a little bit of exploration already. I also use social audio to promote and market my Black History initiative as well, where on the particular platform I'm using that I am earning some earnings from that.
Okay, cool. So the monetizing is a big part. That's where you want to go. That's where you're planning to go. And I'm looking at the podcast, and I'm looking at like season 2, episode 8 is, I think it looks, at least just from my side, it looks like a little over 2 months from the episode that came out beforehand. And there was a couple that came out on that day, and then it was over a month. So what's the cadence? What's the cadence, and how do you decide your cadence for publishing episodes?
Yeah, so with the cadence, history is a little bit different, especially since I go so in depth with the history. So overall, our goal is to publish 1 episode per month, but sometimes it will depend on the content and the research that I'm doing, while it may take a little bit longer because, when you're really dealing with history, it's, first analyzing, then it's the fact checking, and then it's putting that history content in such a way that people will be able to understand and grasp it.
One thing that I'm thinking is, if I was ever going to listen to history, I think I'd like to hear it from an engineer. So like you being an engineer, that's pretty helpful, because and I want to say this the right way, because the listener who isn't an engineer, they're going to be offended. They're going to be like, what the heck? But when it comes down to it, most humans have our own side of things. Most of us have our own assumptions, predetermined notions about something, about a subject. Yeah. And even in some cases, just like an agenda, but the agenda doesn't come specifically from the details. The agenda comes from our heart, because human beings, for the most part, we act with our emotions. And I think it's interesting that some of the times when we listen to news, for example, the news is one of the best. And let's just talk about the news on the right, the news on the left. The news on the right is correct about everything and every detail, and they are passionate about it, and nothing else can be right. And the news on the left is right about everything, right about every detail. They're passionate about it, and nobody else can be right. And they don't do a lot of fact checking. They do enough fact checking to support just their side of the argument. And on your podcast, what I think is a beautiful thing is that you are an engineering mind. You are the person who cares about the details, and not like your agenda, not like, okay, I want to tell this story, so let's only look for the details that show that part of the story, but more what's really going on. And sometimes you're going to take a month in order to publish an episode, because you want to make sure that it's not just one-sided, but that it is true. And I like that. I think it's interesting. And I don't think everybody who puts out history thinks the way that you do. And your high school teacher might be a good example.
Absolutely. And, because a lot of the reading material that I'm looking at is books itself, and that references a lot of resources as well, a lot of books or whatnot. So I just not take the author's word as face value. I also go into and look at the references that they are referencing in the books. And I say, okay, because again, I'm trying to get a deeper understanding, because mind you, is that, you know, my podcast that's going to be coming out this month, next week, is about, you know, vanished African civilizations. That is like 10,000 years of history that I've had to really look into and put that into a constructive way so people can be able to grasp that. And again, breaking that down, it takes, you know, time as well.